All right. I'd like to call this policy committee meeting to order. What we will do here first is we will discuss, if there is any discussion, all policies up for second and final read for this Thursday night. You should have those. You don't have them in paper, but you should have them there electronically if you got your computer. Also, I think Ms. Ford, I think they have those pulled up there on the screen in front of you also. So you see one or have already seen one you want to ask questions about, we can open that up for everybody to see on the screen. I will go ahead and just open it up for discussion. If you would, please, let's try to stay in some semblance of an order as we move down through these. You
Real
may.
quick, with regard to the attendance policy, policy 6.200, that was changed a little between the first read and the second read, or the first read and tonight. And so what you can see, if you look at tonight's agenda, the version of 6.200 that you see is what was, is the same as what was on the first read. But if you look on Thursday's agenda, the June 20th agenda, the version for Thursday of 6.200 is the actual second read final version. So that's the one that has been corrected and finalized at this point.
Okay.
Is that what we're looking at here on the screen?
That's the first one. No, pull it, David, can you scroll down? No, that's the last one.
So
Can you go to,
This is the one that we'll be voting on
no. Can you pull that one up from this meeting for Thursday? I did not know there had been a change between first
Oh,
read
okay.
and second
then.
read.
Okay.
So that's why we had these pulled up, but we can pull it up.
But the one attached to the agenda is correct? No.
You're on Thursday's agenda.
Yes.
Not
Yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the meeting agenda for Thursday night.
Okay, that's what I.
And it is redlined as well to show you the changes.
Okay. So while they're pulling that up, I think I've got mine here. If you'll notice, I think we start with line 21 there, striking the director of schools or designee shall oversee the entire attendance program. It just says, now we'll read the attendance supervisor shall oversee. And then you will see there in addition on line 32, ensuring all school-aged children attend school. Yeah, all right, that's an addition. You'll see on line 37 that excuses are not only submitted, but then an addition of and documented for absences and tardiness. And then lines 36 through 44 on page 2, carrying over to lines 1 through 4 on page 3, those to be stricken in regards to truancy or habitual truancy, to only include district personnel will intervene to address habitual truancy using a tiered intervention support structure. And then the next section there goes on to outline that support structure, that intervention. Now, I do have one question about this. On page 3, under the truancy plan, sentences 11 and 12 say, and this is just for consistency, doesn't, I mean, identifies the director of schools, the attendance supervisor, or his/her designee. But I noticed that on page 1, that was stricken. So I just wondered about the reason for that, because on page 1, line 21, almost the exact same wording, director of schools or designee.
So you're saying we should strike director of schools and just have attendance supervisor in both
Well,
places?
Either that or, seems to me, go-
Attendance supervisor.
yeah, in both places.
Yes.
Shall be reported to the attendance supervisor or his or her designee.
Yes.
Okay.
Mary, did you see that?
I do, so on page 3.
Line 11.
Deleting,
Director
the
or
director
11
of
and 12,
schools.
correct.
Okay, that, yes. for
Yep.
Consistency,
Just for
yes.
clarity.
And I think you could take out his or her designee, cause that doesn't, I mean, you don't use that, and on page 1, it just says the attendance supervisor.
Okay, yep. So just for consistency there. And then, should 15 and 16, how does that affect those lines then? Dr. Robertson, should that then say then the attendance supervisor, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so same thing on 15. Line 15, replacing director of schools with attendance supervisor. I noticed that, I'm not sure that I noticed it in any of the other pieces of the truancy plan. Okay, that's all I had on that one. Anybody else got anything on that?
I was just gonna ask, the term documentation, are they gonna actually scan the note and load it in? They are? Okay, that's what I was wondering. So not just referring that they brought a note, but actually scan the note. All right, thank you.
All right, anybody got anything else on that policy? All right, let's move to 6.202. You guys okay with that? Did you get everything you needed on that first one? Okay. Homeschools policy. Anything of note there? That policy's 2 pages. All right, then 6.203, school admissions.
Yes, I have have a question
Okay.
with, Dr. Robertson. Are we getting, very many, immigrants that are entering our schools now? I mean, you read about all this stuff.
I mean, you can see the percentages of our newcomers coming in. I wouldn't say that it's, anything that is more than what we typically have seen.
So there's been no spike in that related
Not like
to.
last year to this year or the year before. Now, if you look over the course of the last 5 years, then, its population has grown.
And now, do those kids have what we need? Birth certificate? They have those things?
A lot of them don't know.
Because this policy says they gotta have.
Yeah.
So how are we handling that?
It says officially or officially accepted evidence of birth, date of birth at the time of registration. So not necessarily just the birth certificate, just something that indicates their date of birth.
What would that,
So,
what
yeah.
would that be?
What else would do that?
Like immigration papers would be a,
Oh,
passport. It could be,
well, but they may not have those things.
sure.
Right.
Immigration papers, passport, anything that they have with them.
I don't
It
have
could
none
be
of those, I don't
yeah.
have none of that stuff. So how am I gonna get
It
to
could be
school?
some school records, then we
Don't
would
have that.
ask, we
Ain't
would
got that.
have, yeah, so then we would ask that the social worker or our homeless liaison works with,
parent
any
or-
of the centers that are here locally that have, sponsored and brought them in here, that we get some type of documentation.
Okay.
Just to kind of give us an age and a placement,
Okay.
grade placement.
So I'm just asked that question from time to time. How many illegals do we have that's in Amity County schools right now?
Did you?
I mean, I have no idea. We can't ask some of those questions.
yeah.
Mary, you can speak to that better than I can.
Well, that's right, yeah, we don't, but that wouldn't be something we would
Yeah.
necessarily know, yeah.
Okay, okay.
And Matt, I do know that once some families arrive here, that there's a process that they go through with their home country's consulate to obtain that paperwork. It may take a while, but they do receive official documents from the consulate of their home country, such as, like, so that they will have some sort of official ID, passport or something else. That's very common to happen.
Right, and we wouldn't delay their enrollment, but we ask for it, but whatever they have, then we provide. We use that for a placement, and then once we get that, we can switch placement, but we would like to use what we have to best place them when they first arrive.
Let me just say this, Joe, and I don't want to chase a rabbit here, but we have kids come into the boxing gym a lot of times, good kids, and then they work. I mean, they train hard, love the sport. So it's time to have little Johnny. He's prepared. He's ready to compete. So before we can do that, we have to register them with the national governing body, which is USA Boxing. So take this home, have your mama fill it out, and bring it back to me tomorrow, and then we never see him again. So what that tells me is that probably mama's scared to sign the paper.
If you remember in the budget last year, we, actually, more than that, it was 2 years ago, created the International Welcome Center down at West 40th, and it was with that intent, is that, so this and say the system, people don't trust big systems.
Yep,
They don't
yep,
trust us, and so that Welcome Center that Diego and his team, have put together and have worked so diligently to build that trust. We did that for that explicit reason.
So could be helpful to me then,
Yeah.
with those kids.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. Okay.
Gary?
Sorry, Joe.
That's right.
My question or concern is number 3, the evidence of state-required immunization. And I know when they come in, I mean, what's the process when we don't have records in that of making sure that before they come into schools, they've been immunized appropriately?
Well, Marcia, this is why I said you sit up here, you know more about this than me. But
She
I mean,
likes
we,
getting in her
yeah,
steps.
we've got to obviously make sure that we have all that stuff and work with them, but there are also, I mean, Mary can speak to the laws on this as well, of what we can and can't do.
Right, we can ask, but that can't be, we can't say, send them away because they don't have it. We can ask for it, but if they don't have it, we still enroll them in school.
All right, so a parent that refuses to give their children the mumps, measles, rubella, and polio vaccine, we still enroll there?
Yes, and we do have,
Okay.
we have a form that a parent who refuses to
Right.
do that for whatever the reasons are, we have a form that they sign that indicate that I've chosen for my children not to have those immunizations.
To be clear, that's not a new.
No,
that's
I
not
know it,
new.
I
That's
just-
always been.
Right.
I
yeah.
just know now after COVID and that, and it seems you hear it more and more, there are certain outbreaks of different things that had not been around. TB's coming back, whooping cough. There's been different things you hear on the news coming back, and I just was curious, when you get, incoming students that you don't know the immunization, what the risk factors are. So I was just curious on that. But there are other parents, I know there are parents after COVID and those vaccines that refuse to give vaccines to their children now, so.
I have a question. Do we still, I feel like I've heard of it in the past. Do we ever partner with the health department to have vaccination clinics at the school in the neighborhood at some point in the summer before registration to kind of address some of these issues?
So just last week, I think it was, we did have the health department representatives from the health department. They came around and talked with all of our extended senior leadership team, and there will be, they're having not, I don't think they're calling it a roundup, but they are having this big clinic this summer. And I don't have the flyer in front of me, but they did share that information with us. Not necessarily we're partnering with them, but they just did discuss with us just what you brought up, Mr. King, and they're having a vaccination event this at the end of the summer, I do believe.
Is it at our school? Because the only reason I ask if it's at our schools is because sometimes our schools is like the place where newcomers feel the safest in our community in engaging with government, even though they don't always feel totally safe, because we're providing an education to the children. That is where they feel safest interacting with government, and having it at a familiar place, like at their kid's school, might actually help.
Yes.
That's why I
Well,
asked.
this event is not at the school. It is at the health department, but they did provide us with the information
Okay.
for us to share.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on that one? All right, let's move to 6.204, attendance of non-resident students. No new language there on that one. This is non-resident students. All right, any discussion on that one at all? All right, 6.205, student assignments. Assignments to schools, and then more specifically, assignments to classes. Anything there? I actually do have a question on that line 18, 19. Principal shall separate alleged victim of child sexual abuse from alleged perpetrator if the abuse allegedly occurred while the child was under supervision or care of the school. Does the language need to be that specific, or can it be abuse in general? Just wondering about how specific that policy is. Or
Does it have to be sexual abuse?
That's what I'm
or
saying.
could it be
Yeah.
just abuse, right?
That makes it really difficult to address bullying situations if you make it that broad.
I was gonna say, abuse or bully, is that addressed somewhere else?
Yeah.
Well, but I think this is referring to, well, it's not, it's
Family
not,
members,
it's, yeah,
not-
no,
child.
not necessarily, it's just, anyway, okay. Mary, you.
I think it's referring to a Title IX, obviously Title IX issues, this is specific language around that, is when an allegation is made, we have a responsibility under Title IX to investigate it and make sure that, alleged victims are protected.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm looking at when this was issued, and I think that language was chosen specifically to satisfy something along those lines.
All right, anybody got anything else on that one? All right, moving on. 6.300, the Code of Behavior and Discipline. One page. Speaks specifically to COAB and who's responsible for the development of that. Any questions on that?
And I know we don't do the COAB. Has that been trimmed down a little? Okay.
We revise it every year, make small tweaks here and there. You saw it from the beginning, the changes that we've made since then, but it's just small adjustments.
All right, anything else there? All right, we'll move on to 6.301, rights and responsibilities. So this addresses rights of students, responsibilities of students. Anything there? All right, 6.3021, student disciplinary procedures, procedures for suspensions, and then more specifically, suspensions in excess of 5 or 10 days, and then also in-school suspensions. Any questions there?
I have a
Ms.
question.
Black?
Does the language around Title IX, include discrimination with sexual orientation or no?
Which policy are we talking about right now?
The rights and responsibilities, like,
Okay.
line 11 and 12 list out everything, and I was wondering if that reflects the official wording in federal Title IX.
Yes, Title IX as it is intended to be implemented, later this year, yes. And I'm trying to think if this is, I don't think that that was drafted expressly with that in mind. But there's actually a decision that just came down today that's putting a halt on implementing the new Title IX regulations in Tennessee for now. So that just happened today.
Does that apply to all states?
Not all states, Tennessee, I think it's 4 states. I think Tennessee
But
being one of them.
I thought over 20 had sued.
That's correct. It's just they're in different pockets of federal courts, so I think
Okay,
they're
so
just
everything's
getting-
on hold right now?
As of today, I
All
haven't
right.
read the whole case, but that's
Thank
what I
you.
saw, yeah.
So all of Title IX, or?
Actually, don't know, it wouldn't be all of it, it would be at least some of the new changes,
Okay.
yeah, the new proposed changes.
But my question was sexual orientation included in previous to the new changes?
Sexual orientation, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, as it currently stands, I don't know that sexual orientation is, it certainly can be, something that is, actionable under Title IX. I'm not sure I can't remember what it expressly says, but there's other federal, law that speaks to that as well.
All right. So 6.3021, again, student disciplinary procedures. Again, going back to suspensions, and then more specific language around suspensions of certain days. Any questions about those at all?
Are we gonna continue with, his or her designee, community superintendent?
Which lines are we talking about?
18, 19?
Yeah.
We struck it earlier, so I didn't know if we would strike it.
Well, I was striking it earlier because it was inconsistent. I'm assuming, and Dr. Robertson said that there was no need for a designee. Attendance supervisor was gonna handle those issues, so here,
This could go to the assistant of the community superintendent.
which would be the designee.
Right.
That's right, okay.
Okay.
That's right, the other was attendance.
Okay, anything there? All right. We'll move on to the next one, 6.3022, dealing with appeals processes.
My question is, since we increased the number of the licensed employees to serve, do we need to increase the number for a quorum?
That's lines 12 and 13.
No, this is, I think that this is actually law that we have to have one for every district. So there are 11 of you, we have 11 of DHA. Is that what you're talking about, the number of,
But four for a quorum, though.
where are you reading that, what line?
12, line 12.
No, so we have 4 of them, because that's just what we've always done. We don't want all 11 of these. They're the administrators that sit on the appeal hearing. And so if we were to require more, it's pulling more administrators out of the building. And so 4 is a good number to do the hearing.
Okay.
And,
So as long as you have 4, you can go ahead and hold the hearing.
That's right.
Okay.
Anything else there? All right. Policy 6.307, alcohol and drug use. Alcohol and drug education. Okay, any discussion on that one? All right, 6.503, in regard to homeless students. This policy defines homeless youth or children, the identification of such.
Dr. Drake, how many we have right now? Do you know?
Currently about 850.
Oh, my goodness. It's heartbreaking.
So I'm ignorant, so help me out. So where are they staying right now? I mean,
So
not
we,
this summer,
yeah.
but even,
When we like talk about homeless students, the way it's defined under here, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're like homeless. It could be someone that's living in a pay-by-week
right,
apartment.
an apartment or what.
It could be somebody that's like couch surfing between family members, or someone that's doubled up with a family member, you know, on a more regular basis.
Or living in a tent at
living
Chester
in
Frost.
a tent, car, they're in a, you know, again, extended stay hotels, so,
It's probably the most common.
yeah, that's what it is, and our homeless liaison does a really good job working with those families. At that meeting that Dr. Drake mentioned last week, we had homeless coalition members there that were talking to us about how we can get better resources to kids and families, not just around, housing, that's a big deal, but obviously the other resources are important as well, food,
Food and clothing.
yeah.
That's also a program that's run out of
And
40
they do a
million.
great job, by the way. I didn't realize we had that many, but I've worked with, they do a good job.
Yeah, like a year ago, it was 600.
Okay. Anything else there on that policy? All right. 6.505, students in foster care. Their enrollment, their placement, transportation. Any questions or discussions about that policy? Okay. Then lastly here, homebound instruction program, eligibility for that program, and the program itself. Mrs. Robinson?
I have a question. On line 32, should, for a total of 4 certifications be added? 32,
On page 1.
yes, page 1. And then on line 33, C just be omitted since there's nothing there.
I may be
Actually,
looking
C's
at
already
an old
omitted
one.
on my
Yeah.
version,
Oh, okay.
on the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I read it
That's
old.
from, well, that's from, they fixed it from last month.
Okay, I read it from an old one. Good.
Apologize, I was not aware those
I
changes
don't
had been
think,
made.
Mrs. Robinson, I'm now reading that, because I know we talked about that a minute ago. I think all that's saying in line B is that a physician can then recertify for increments of 2 weeks. I hear what you're saying, you're taking that 2 weeks and looking at
Oh,
the
I-
2 weeks previous, but the physician can extend.
I did not see the word increments. Thank you. I didn't notice.
That, I guess the number that's involved in that varies, that homebound, that number varies, yeah. Who, not by name, but what department handles that? Who, were those, is that you? What do you do in your spare time? You don't have none.
Okay, anything else there? All right, so then, you'll see, in front of you, in paper behind your agenda for our meeting, additional policies from Mr. Bennett there. Mary, you want to say anything to these? I know Scott probably would if he were here, but,
These are just, and this is, you all received, there's a summary of all the education public chapters that came out, and it's a very long document. And that's just taking the language straight from the statutes and what they've added, what's gonna go in the statutes, what's gonna be, created as a new statute or what have you. So this is taking from that and looking at that, these are just some things that Scott and I, we looked at and we thought, well, some things that maybe, while it's important to look at and understand the whole thing, these are some things that maybe the board and folks in central office might want to just take particular notice of. Some of these things will require some updates to certain policies and creation of procedures or updates to procedures and things like that. Some of these, as you know, public chapters can vary in the types of content that they have. Some are very, very minimal in terms of what they add to the law, and then others are a little more substantive. And so these are the things that, just in kind of glancing at the thing, we thought, well, maybe just if you're going to start out, which ones would we suggest you start out looking at, before you maybe look at some of the others. So that's what I would say about those.
so, I was just gonna say, take these with you. Be appropriate to, obviously read the synopsis there and then dig a little deeper. And if you've got questions, as is stated at the top, reach out to either Mr. Bennett or Marion, and let's start talking about maybe if there are reasons to update policies and procedures. Go ahead.
So help me out, because, I know when I see a board policy, the numbers, but explain to me, like, in the first one, 523, is this Tennessee Code annotated? And
That's the public chapter. So if you look at the comprehensive document, they're listed by public chapter. They're
So-
broken down by, like, big categories like
Okay.
curriculum, school safety, et cetera. And then within those, you'll see all the public chapters that fall under those respective umbrellas, and they're in chronological order within their subject matters.
Okay.
So if you look at the whole thing, those are all just the public chapter numbers.
So chapter 523.
Yes, yes.
Oh, fun reading, isn't it?
Very fun, let me tell you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so that concludes our final read policies for Thursday night. Any other business before we adjourn? Okay. We are adjourned.
That's